morning. Welcome to the latest edition of Tecman Talks Dynamics. I'm here with Matt and Liz, and this episode we've got access to the 2022 release Wave 2 plan. So Microsoft typically publishes this, I'm not sure how many days it is before availability, but we're in July now. Availability will be 1st of October. They seem to stick to that consistently.
1st of October.
Well, they generally something comes out on the 1st of October, doesn't it? But then
we can't in the area that you can't always schedule it for the first. There might be a few days delay before you can schedule the update.
And this may change as well between now and then.
Oh, actually, I mean, that's one of the points. You know, I think the deployment plan, because not everything comes in the first release, does it?
Yeah, you might come in a minor release afterwards.
In, the November, December, January release. They seem to spread it. They push stuff out when it's ready, which I agree with. And I think that's happening with the docs as well in terms of the release plan, because I bet if we come back to this release plan in 4 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, there'll be a few things that have landed in it that are not here on day one.
I think it might be worth pointing out, in case anyone's seen anything around this, is that Microsoft issued a statement a few weeks ago saying that they were going back, that during COVID times they'd gone to 60-day release cycles for the update, so you had 60 days to update. So they sent out a notification saying they were going back to 30 days.
Right.
And then a few days later, we had another notification that's saying, but major releases, they're going back to 60 days.
Okay.
So at the moment, as we understand it, is major releases, you have the 60 days to update it, minor releases are 30 days.
So major releases are the April and October.
Yeah.
And the minor releases are the normal
the ones in between.
Service
packs in between, yeah. So it is our understanding that's how it will work going forward. So.
Okay. Well, let's crack on with what we've got.
30 days for a major update is not a lot of time to test it all through.
I think that's why when they made that statement, they very quickly retracted it, because everyone went, what?
I think, your other factor with that is often it's the ISVs, isn't it? You know, increasingly as you've got a kind of wide selection of ISVs in a tenant, there might be one or two in there that actually are a little late releasing. I think with my ISV
as well. You know, if you've got major things coming in it that are going to have major impact, then 30 days is not long enough. As you will see, I don't think there's anything in Wave 2 like that, but you can guarantee that 2023 Wave 1 will probably be more impact.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay, so let's start around the application area first. So first one on the list, again.
Well, it wouldn't be bank rec, would it?
It's bank reconciliation improvements again.
For checks,
yeah. I seem to remember those.
What's a check, Matt? You're the oldest. What's a check?
Those things you used to write with a quill pen, weren't they? Back in the day.
Given that in some places it's still spelled CHECK, I would imagine this is probably predominantly for the American market.
Maybe,
So I think with people moving over from GP, I think there's still a few. There's still kind of attempting to fill the gaps in there. For us in Europe, where we do largely electronic payments, thank goodness. Can you remember waiting for the post to arrive, for your check to arrive?
Well, it was just an excuse to delay payment.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it, really?
We all know the customers that send the post-dated ones.
That's it. Next one is probably not for UK, I think certain European countries it's used for. So on VAT clauses is just there's text you have to put on a VAT clause.
To print on your documents.
To be able to use extended text, so you can add a bit more detail around that. Next one, reasonable large one. So account schedules had a little bit of love in the last release, so that you could add some extra columns, and you could filter. You could set a filter on a column, which kind of means that you could filter against a budget, so you could do budget forecast, which is a good one. But now they're renaming it to...
Yeah, so I think that this appears to be laying the building blocks for more and more features to come in this area. I think, and if anyone's listened to the reporting podcast that George and I did, that account schedule is a really underutilised feature, as it is. Yeah. So the fact that it's going to be made more obvious, easy to use, more user friendly, I think will be a really positive thing. So but I think this is, this is essentially a rename.
Yeah, financial reporting.
But yeah,
and a little bit there is some changes to the structure of it.
But it feels like building blocks for some more, something else.
Well, I've seen from some of the program managers on Twitter, one particularly, so it's in the public domain. They were requesting what should we do with financial reporting as it's now called. So they're actively kind of canvassing ideas, which leads you to believe that they're going to do some more work around this area. It's
so
clearly
get your suggestions in if you've got one.
Well, yeah, I mean BC Ideas, but not everything goes through BC Ideas. They were asking for what they're doing. I mean, I'd love it so that you could have so many columns which were. I thought extending the number of columns was great because before I think you could have 10, which means that you could get the first, you could get a whole financial.
Yeah, obviously you need your whole financial year plus a budget plus a total.
Yeah. So you needed 14 at least. Yeah. So you got 14 now. You could do that, but I'd like the first. X columns to be actuals, and then the rest to be budget. So effectively, you could do a reforecast depending on where you were. Because quite often you want to know, right? We're in month 7 now. Month 6 actuals, second half of the year. What are we reforecasting for? Would be really nice that sort of functionality. Yeah. I think there's a lot more they could do with that. I think also the other thing that they need to really think is everybody looks at the output for it and goes, that looks really dull and boring, because it's the way it's presented on screen is not. I hesitate to use the word sexy, but
even the change we had not too long ago where ticking the bold box actually meant it showed in bold. It was just on the report, wasn't it? You could actually see it on bold on screen.
You two with your fancy colours. Accountants, you just want you just want a clear profit and loss in a balance sheet. Doesn't have to spin.
But then, I don't agree with that, because I show it to accountants and they're used to present. I mean, the competitor is Excel, right? And they're using all the formatting in Excel and so on. And, they don't get that in.
No, I think there's plenty of room for improvement, but all I was saying is
positive.
It's underutilised anyway.
Because the mechanics of what it does is really good. Yeah.
Next one's a really interesting one. Yeah, so...
For 20 years I've been asking for this. Yeah. Literally.
So for many, many, many years, BC has had, or NAV Division has had the posting / tax point date. Now that's implying that the day I post it into my ledgers is also the same date for my tax date, which it isn't, certainly in the UK. The date on the invoice is the tax date.
Yes.
And the day I post it to my ledgers is whatever day I happen to post it. I might get an invoice that's
it's the financial period that I want it to go in.
Yeah.
And if I've closed last month, the fact that it's tax dated in last month still means the tax date is last month, but I can't post it into last month.
It's just always been completely driven by posting date, hasn't it? Document date was used to calculate payment terms, and that's about it, really.
Yep. So now there's a new field on purchase and sales documents called VAT date, and you can choose in setup whether the VAT date is fed from either the document date or the posting date, and then the VAT entries are going to be calculated off the VAT date.
Which will either be the posting date, the document date, or I assume you could add a third date if you so wished.
Enter the VAT date.
You could overtake the VAT date, maybe.
Yeah, okay, interesting. And then obviously a VAT statement then will work off the VAT date.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
However that's set.
I'd say 95% of customers have just lived with that.
They have, but I think there's a lot of customers, had they had the option from the beginning, would have done it differently.
Well, particularly here in the UK, we're making tax digital now, because the first time I came around, I remember a guy said, I've just bought 2 trucks, and it was like 140 grand's worth of invoice that he'd got, and he could claim the VAT back legitimately. It was perfectly. He hadn't had the invoice for a while because it had sat on somebody's desk. and he was trying to put the VAT claim back into his prior quarter. The document date said he could do that. I mean, it was 17.5% back then of 140 grand. He wanted that in his cash flow, and perfectly legitimately. And I was like, well, you're gonna have to reopen your period, or and
you can
do a journal, but it just gets messy, doesn't it?
This is a good feature, and I think if I would imagine a lot of customers probably won't change it. Existing customers, but it gives new customers an option.
We should. The default should be that it works off the document date. It should have always worked off the
document
date.
Actually, having just said that, it's just occurred to me. You have to change it with caution. If you're an existing and you're mid VAT period.
No, because it works off the document, doesn't it? So it'll only be new documents that you put on that will adopt the new.
Yeah, but you could potentially have some reconciliation issues. You just have to but just think about it before you change it, because I'd have to think this thing. It's just occurred to me, but just think about it before you just go ahead and change it.
Maybe one for a future blog.
We'll work that one out.
Reverse payment reconciliation journal entries. I think that's should have been their first time round. Use multiple Remit2 addresses for vendors. But so this is
this is an interesting one, because we're not 100% sure how this would be.
Between us, we must have done a few.
Probably
be 1,000 implementations over the years. Certainly up way into the hundreds, and none of us can think of when this has ever been.
We think it's where you've got your supplier. You're paying your supplier, but you want to send the invoice to a different...
No, remittance.
So remittance. Okay, so you want to send your remittance to a different address. Maybe email address, maybe.
It just says mail address, doesn't it? Mailing address.
Yeah.
Multiple mailing addresses. So does that mean snail mail, traditional?
Well, it suggests you print a document with that address on it. And it also kind of suggests it's for specific. So it usually goes to one place, but for this specific payment, it's got to go to another place.
Because we've got the pay to feature already.
I think we probably need to see that to really understand the value and maybe think about some examples. Yeah. So it's come from somewhere. So
the next section is country and regional. Interesting that they think they've gone into 3 figures in terms of more than 100 countries and regions supported by either Microsoft or partner-led localizations. 100 countries. That's it's going to be an exceptional where you aren't. I think the rest of it is, redesigned intrastat solution and configurable. Well, probably here in the UK, following Brexit, we're not.
No, but we do have some customers who use or who have subsidiaries in other countries.
Well, especially since Brexit, we've got a lot who've got a company in Ireland now, so that they can continue to
Ireland, France.
Yeah, so the changes for Belgium and France and Italy, it's good to see Microsoft staying on top of what the countries want.
I think if people would like some detail on Belgian and Italian and French and Belgian Intrastat, they're probably best listen to a podcast from a partner there.
Yes, absolutely.
Next section is development. James, do you want to kind of cover this one?
I'm not sure I'm qualified, but I think it will be interesting to see the outcome of this. Promotion action groups and action references. Look, the action bar, we're probably back in bank reconciliation territory, where there's been 1 or 2 attempts at kind of sorting out the action bar and getting it a bit more consistent. It's not as flexible as it needed to be. Different ISVs have done different things that sometimes could be conflict. At the new promoted action model to address this, but they're retaining the old model for compatibility. So I'm a little bit, how's that going to work? I want to see what this does, but I am fully supportive of the fact that the navigation for actions. You go on some of the most used pages, things like the item list, item card, customer list, customer card, sales order. There's an awful lot of actions on there, and especially once different ISVs have put their extensions in, there's a heck of a lot of actions, and they're not. You get the situation where you get multiple headings saying related, and it's like, which one is it under again? It's
kind of things are in multiple places.
And it's kind of.
I think they've got, you and I do a lot of demos, and I think, every release comes out, and you're in the middle of a demo, and you go to a bot, and then you go, okay, where's that gone? And early days, I can remember when when Roll Tailored Client came out, you'd spend your life trying to find certain things.
Those little icons, and if you're on a low resolution screen and the light's just a little square, you had to hover over each one for a second.
But you go back to classic, and you try and teach somebody to go and find stuff in there. We used to just know where it was. You got to realise that was really hard in those days.
Action is, it is a lot better, and the Alt Q is the saviour if you can't find it. But I do think that there's still work to do. So there, by ref XML port parameters in OData. I didn't really understand that. Again, I want to see an example of that, of where that is. But I think being able to there's a limited number of APIs.
There is.
And frequently,
and they're limited.
And they're limited.
But sales and purchase documents haven't got dimensions on.
So there's a situation where you almost want to kind of be able to supply in a table reference, field reference, and be able to get it back from one API rather than having to build APIs all the time. Yeah. So a bit like the variant construct that you've got, where you can almost say this table reference is this particular table at the moment and this particular table later. So I'm kind of hoping that's where that comes through. Maybe it's a start, and maybe that then gives them the starting point for a user-defined query tool, because that's one of the biggest asks I've had for a long, long time now. And I know why they don't want to do it, because of performance. And I keep saying, well, when you define a query, do a performance analysis to say what's the impact going to be, and make sure it's below a certain score before they can run it. Yeah. I don't know. I'll keep banging the drum. Maybe I hope it's not like VAT dates where it's 20 years before I get it, but I've probably been banging it 10 years now. I remember 5 years ago, certainly. There's another one which is write faster upgrade code. This is one of the, when you're refactoring an app, when you're changing something, if you change a field name, if you change a field type, or certainly if you change a primary index, you can have to deprecate a whole table, mark it as obsolete, and create a new one. Mm-hmm. And my understanding, this is going to make it almost a single command to move all the data from one table into the new table, and we'll do it much more efficiently than a recurse through each record, doing a transfer of this field into this field. So hopefully that's going to make it a lot faster to kind of move data around on
if you need to refactor. Particularly if there's a change in an update, which means that pricing, which.
Well, we've already had situations in the Clever side so that we move it, and if it's a transactional table, a log table, for instance, and we want to refactor it to put something different or extra in, that means we need to change the primary key. When you install, you could sit there for 20 minutes with it not doing anything or not, installing. Is just on the status, and you get no status.
Doing anything?
Is it doing anything? Is it going to get like 15 minutes through and fail, and then give you a message, or what's it doing? So hopefully this is going to give us the tools to do that a lot faster.
Yep. Governance and administration next then.
Yeah, so, important people know that they've retired the notification recipients. So the emails that you used to get, that's been retired because everything's moving to the message centre. So if you're not on our managed service, in which case you'd get emails from us anywhere around that, then that's where those messages will be. You will no longer get multiple emails about updates, when they're scheduled, when they're done, if they've failed, all that kind of thing is coming away.
So you have to go and find it. You you not have the option to get an email still?
I don't think there's an option. It goes into the Microsoft 365 message center, so whether or not that can drive notifications, I don't know actually. We should probably check that, but
we might have to use Power Automate.
Well, I don't know, but
we'd hope so, because you don't have to go keep looking, do you, to just checking
well,
every day,
that pops up when if you're an administrator, that'll pop up in a pane in Outlook saying this might be affecting your tenant and all the rest of it. So the people who are designated, you've got to really look at who your designated administrators are. You don't want too many of them, but you don't want too few either. The other thing, service-to-service authentication with the admin API. So that was critical for us to kind of that's frees up a lot of things that's for us running a managed service, so that means we can get
it allows us to get certain
a lot of the
information.
life cycle operations, as they're called, so updates and so on. So we can get the same information that used to go out of our email and do it. I mean, you talk to Microsoft and they do complain that they don't get response to emails and people ignore them and all the rest of it, and there's a horrible balance, isn't there, about them sending too much and not notifying. Different people have got different requirements about what they want, and it was a bit of a crude tool, so I don't blame them for trying to do something different.
That's why you go on holiday, come back and you've got 97 emails about
So you end up setting up a rule and you'll never see them again.
Well, exactly. That's the problem, isn't it? Or they end up going into unfocused or whatever, and they just get lost, especially if you get lots of emails anyway. So
the one in here that really makes me kind of pull my hair out is restore deleted environments. Now, I was at a conference with some guys from Microsoft. They said one of the most common support requests, kind of expedited, is to restore a deleted environment.
Wow. It's like, are you sure? Type in the name of the environment.
Yeah.
Are you really sure? Yes. You can't do that by accident.
I mean, here at Tecman, we've never had, to my knowledge, to get one restored.
Not
because
not
on the cloud platform. We've had customers accidentally delete databases when they're on premise, and that can be for any multiple reasons why that could happen. But I don't think we've ever had to restore a deleted environment.
No,
I'm sure we haven't.
I can't think of one.
So, I you do wonder how on earth that has occurred.
Yes. But I mean, okay, they're obviously doing a soft delete, so when you delete it, it goes out of the list for like 30 days or something, and you can go and restore it without.
I suppose it's one of those things that if it's not really difficult for them to provide, it could get somebody really out of the calls. Yeah, and it could really get organisations out of the mess.
Yeah, yes. There's another feature in admin, which is, it's okay, but if there's an outage, and it is that rare, that rather than just not being able to log in, admins get a notification advising if there is a known outage.
And that is much better because it saves, is it my internet? Is it a local problem? Is it, if they know that there is an outage, which is very, very rare, then it maybe stops some
and actually,
unnecessary messing about.
The outages I've known, if you think back to the outages that we have had, and like you say, it's a couple in the last 18 months or something. I can't remember the last one. It's that rare.
I hate talking about things like that because
there's one coming this afternoon. Most of the outages that I can't think of typically being something else on Azure. So typically authentication. If you can't log in to your environment full stop, you can't get to BC. So it's not. It'd be interesting to see how much this is the BC centric messages when you're logging into BC, and how much it's.
And I think
Azure centric.
But at least
I can only think of one BC one we've had, which was the new table that was added, which you needed permission to that table, but it wasn't put in any permission set, so you couldn't log in.
Yeah, and with so much changes all the time, then occasionally things will happen. Yeah. But this at least gives the user that's trying to log on at 7 o'clock in the morning some idea of what's going on, rather than.
It is interesting though, isn't it? You kind of think that you go into SaaS and you don't have kind of this list of dependencies, where actually we're learning that that's not the case. You've got a dependency on your Azure your Azure organisation for authentication. We've seen in the last few weeks a dependency on browsers for, correctly.
Yeah.
Because that was an update to Edge, wasn't it? And an update to the Chromium.
Yeah. So that wouldn't be classed as an outage, would it?
But it screws the client up.
Yeah, it affected. I think we had 30 support cases around an update, which.
So there is, even though you're in the cloud, you have got some dependencies that perhaps you are not fully understood in the way that a fully mature environment like on-prem is completely understood.
Yeah. Okay. Power Platform?
Power Platform. First one I'll take then. So last version they added the ability to create and run Power Automates off a lot of cards in BC. There's just the ability now when you can personalise it and move those around. Little change, but it can be useful. They're okay. They're a nice feature. The only downside when you're going back to the APIs is that you run a production order and you run a Power Automate. Great, you get the record ID, but there isn't an API to go and do anything with the production order.
And I think maybe that's what people need to understand, that just because it's there doesn't mean that you can actually do anything useful with
you can do something useful, but you'll need you're back to a dev to do
development to do it.
I mean, I think it's got the ability to create some frustration around that area, because it's like, oh look, I can go do this. No, I can't do anything.
We've got more and more customers. We've got more and more customers that have people in their teams that understand the Power Platform and think that they can do certain things quite easily, and actually you can't always. But again, it's all movement towards.
Yes.
But again, being able to personalise the action group, so I assume that's you don't get a list of things and some of which you still want to use, and so you can tidy that up and share that around, so that once you built that interface, that integration with the Power Platform, you can actually distribute to the whole company quite easily, organisation quite easily.
And the next one on Power Platform is that it supports document links and images as well, which is useful. So, hopefully that's a lot easier than it has been to date. But things like having a Power App where you take a picture and being able to push that into BC should be a lot simpler now, and that's a good one, I think.
Yeah.
And then
Power BI apps with dimensions.
Why wasn't it there in the first place? So Power BI finance report now has dimensions. It's like
you can tell you two are functional. When you sit there as a dev and I've got to support this and this on day one, and by the way, day one needs to be tomorrow. They probably it's like.
Are you suggesting that me and Matt are too old and cynical?
No, I'm suggesting.
I'm the old one, you're the cynical one.
It's a balance between getting it absolutely fully functional. Sometimes you as a development task, do you finish this completely and have every feature in it, or do you get something out to the market and see whether people actually use it?
I do agree with that, and I feel like it's better to do that and then get the feedback,
see what people ask for, rather than sit there doing loads of coding
take
for what
5
they might
years
want.
To release something. I agree with that. Okay, so in terms of onboarding then, so for new customers or for adding new apps. There's a few improvements around that. So it will kind of direct you to the setup. So kind of make it easier to install new apps. Nightmare for ISVs, no doubt.
Well, the good ISVs were doing a notification that said you've installed this app. Would you like that? Here's the setup page. And so we've now got to go and take that out. So we've actually got more work to do than if we didn't make it easy in the first place. So mixed view.
That's the thing with being an early adopter, though, isn't it?
Sometimes it is,
I think it really helped with app kind of uptake, though, because I've tried apps where you've installed it. Okay, how do I then go and set it up? Maybe you type the name of how the app's named, and there's nothing there.
And it's called something
else.
different.
How do you know what it is?
Yeah.
So I think that'd be useful, and you can go back.
Yeah, because sometimes as well, you've got the company name, then you've got the app name, and sometimes the app. Okay,
the easily find apps to connect to core services, for instance, banks and is the example they've used. Interested to see that. I think look, this is probably a function around there's 2,700 apps in AppSource or something stupid now, and actually finding it. An AppSource isn't a great search environment, is it? I mean,
no, and some of the apps, the descriptions of them, when you start to look at the detail, isn't it? So to kind of segregate them and make it easy, I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, and I hope they do that by country. So here in the UK, we get the UK banks,
because if you go and look for, somebody said to me the other day, there's loads of credit card integration apps.
Yes.
So go and find one for the UK.
Yeah, and it's like the filtering doesn't work. Actually, using the marketplace page in BC is better than using the front page of web. Million times quicker to install, and actually only shows you the BC apps rather than the F&O.
But you could, if you could filter it by country, that would, or by supported country, I think that would be.
But I think that, I don't know.
Mind you, supported country and meeting country requirements are two separate things, aren't they?
Yeah. You could still install it on a GB and it would work, but it'll only be for the US banks or something like that. So.
And it will spell check, CHECK. Okay.
So, productive with Microsoft 365 is the next section on there. OneDrive integration. Delegated admins can edit in Excel. So, personally, I think this is brilliant because as a delegated admin,
for us as a administrator,
a partner, we can check that, because when we were logged into one organisation, i.e. Tecman, and then trying to use a client system in another organisation, the two didn't connect up. So you couldn't really prove that or demonstrate the full power of that. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, from a customer's perspective, it just means that perhaps from a support point of view, it can make life a bit easier for us to support customers if we need to go and do some mass updates on some data or something.
We like the things that help us, though, don't we?
Ultimately, you hope it helps the customer because it gives them better service. It's just they won't always see that. Reporting. So Excel reports was a couple of releases ago?
No, last release.
Was it?
Yeah.
So there's.
And you can do the different layouts on that, but you had to go and set that up in the kind of report layouts page and so on. Now you can select it from the report selections
when you run the report
page. So you can select what Excel format you want this time. Really nice little. I doubt it took that long to do. I don't know. Might be an assumption, but I think it's going to make that feature much more usable and much more visible as well.
Yeah, I mean it's not a document layout. I got asked this the other day, can we use it for kind of invoices and things like that? I mean, maybe with a bit of work in Excel, but it's more about getting a table, a data set as a table, and then having another tab that does something with that. Pivot tables, charting, etc. So which is good.
Yeah. Well, you can add it with general ledger data and customer and vendor ledgers as well. So in terms of getting data out and using it for reporting, it's another option, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. What else we got?
So the run and send reports from the request page. So it's a little bit like and it sends it to the reporting box. The reporting box is, usually used for scheduling reports. So if you schedule an aged debtors report to run at 8 o'clock every Monday morning or something like that, you could send that into the reporting box. Now you can, if you've got a report that takes a long time to run, you don't have to sit there.
Set it going and it just goes on in the background.
So not massively, but useful one to have.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily always mean that you should be running a massive report in the middle of the day. Just to caveat that.
Well, you see on SaaS, where as long as that report is set to run off the replica.
As well, yes, but as long as it is.
And that's interesting. I don't know. I'd have to go and look at the reports, at the code on that report to see whether it's running against the replica. So I would like Microsoft to be more kind of on the request page, it says this is going to run against live, and therefore it has a performance or against the replica, because if you know that should be part of the decision making.
That almost finishes that, doesn't it? That finishes that kind of, because it can have such an impact depending on what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many reports, standard BC reports, that take a long time. There are some if you've got big volume, things like inventory valuation. If you've got thousands of items and millions of entries, that can take a while to, and be able to just offload that would be great.
There's a few, and then obviously the people will have bespoke stuff as well, which
you can always
you don't know, do you?
A poorly written report maybe as well.
You don't know, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few of those around in the world, aren't there? Yeah. So service and platform, Power BI, a telemetry with one click. The telemetry is now in AppSource. So we have a Power BI. So again, it's probably more for partners. I suppose end users could use it.
It's a good tool though.
It is, and I think partners are still working out the full set of value that it can give. And Kenny's done, compared to where he started with kind of learning KQL to query the telemetry data. Now the Power BI, it's really usable. It's there. It's still probably got, I think we're on a journey with telemetry to get it kind of the proactive side, which is really where we want to be.
It's so much data, isn't it? It's working out what's useful and what we should be monitoring.
Well, it's turning that data into insights, isn't it? The actionable.
And when you go and look at the detail of the telemetry data that's captured, it's huge, isn't it? I mean,
there's a lot of potential there, but
and
there's also a lot of
potential. For a partner like ourselves, which have got
well.
hundreds of SaaS environments out there, just getting it set up so all of them report consistently into the same store and so on.
There is a potential to waste a lot of time and for some red herrings as well in the telemetry we've come across. So we're still working on, what's really valuable, what should we be.
Yeah. And I think that will continue over the period of time.
Okay. User experiences. So I like the switch companies across environments. I think that's
much
nice.
Requested. Much requested. If you've got multiple companies, it was a.
Maybe our video could even have a little pop up to show that.
Yes. Well, that's
That's a nice feature, I think.
Yeah.
And there's some general UI improvements coming. No more detail than that. But it does just keep on improving. Yeah, every release you can tell that there's they've been listening to
the legacy list views. So if you're on premise, if you saved the list views when you were using the role tailored clients. Well, using the role tailored client, you could save your list views, couldn't you? Those have been preserved up to now, but they are going to disappear. Gone. So that's deprecation. So the new save views is so much better. I think it's so much more intuitive to use. I don't think that's going to take a lot of time for anybody to convert over.
Right. So 2023. Wave 2, which is this time next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Legacy views will no longer be supported.
Yes, but they're hidden.
But they're hidden now, so if people scream, we can do something about it before they disappear completely.
And that's it. That's the list.
Well, that's the list so far.
Probably more than when we first looked at it.
Yeah.
And when you go into it, actually, probably more than we first thought.
Yeah.
But there's no kind of big wow, but lots of.
But then I know a few things, outside of NDA, that obviously I'm not supposed to talk about. I don't talk about.
Right, so please don't.
Yes. But we were looking through. So Microsoft published these insider builds. So kind of pretty quickly after they check the code in, they throw it out to us. And the idea is then, as an ISV under Clever, we check our stuff against the insider builds, so that if they've done anything today, written any code today that's going to break any of our stuff, we get the earliest possible notice. And we've got the insider builds coming for this release, because we're only 120 days or whatever from this release. and one of the things that popped up on that was mandatory variants. So there's a new field in inventory setup that seems to indicate, and we haven't gone and done it, so that if you've got a variant set up against an item, it enforces that you must enter the variant code
with every type of transaction.
Every time you transact that item, which is, that's another extension to throw in the bin that we've had for a while.
And I think with manufacturing customers, we're going to see more and more use of variants, because having the ability to
personalisation is a big trend, isn't it?
Setting the BOM and the routing on a stock keeping unit, i.e. a variant, all of a sudden means that variants become a lot more.
Yeah, well, it avoids you having to have
millions of items.
36 items was essentially the same thing.
A variant could be used for configure to order.
But with it not being mandatory, it almost makes it worse, because you don't know what. Yeah. If you've got one transaction with no variants, then it just throws it all out completely, doesn't it?
So you had to make it mandatory. So, that's not on this list of published documents. And I guess the lady who kind of curates this list and does the docs, she's the person who's created that functionality maybe hasn't finished it yet. It's not fully complete. So he hasn't written the docs in. So I think that this list, what we've seen in the previous versions is, go back to this list probably every couple of weeks for the lead up to October, and you'll see, I didn't see that the first time around.
Well, like we did last time, we did 2 podcasts, didn't we? We did when the release notes came out, we did this what we expected, and then we did what have we actually got, and there was certainly more in the second one than the first one, rather than the other way around. So,
and some of the better pieces as well.
Yeah,
there was a nice little thing that snuck out as well recently, which was relating to
a technical term. Snuck out.
Related to Power BI and BC. So within Power BI, you have a thing called data flows. And it's if you've used Excel Power Query or Power Query within Excel, in effect, that's kind of what a data flow is in the cloud. Yeah. So that now natively works with the BC connector. So that really opens up the possibility of easily creating, a data flow to have a general ledger data flow that can just go and suck your data out and give you a reporting set in the cloud that you can go use from Excel or from Power BI. And that's available in Power BI Pro and Premium. So that's something that we only saw kind of appear yesterday. Something we're going to go have a play with, but I think that it's going to open up some interesting possibilities around Power BI.
And this is one thing I've said to a few customers recently, that if you kind of, Power BI is a good instance. I was up visiting somebody and they were saying, well, we looked at Power BI a couple of years ago and it didn't really do what we wanted and whatever. You can't just write, just because you looked at it a couple of years ago, you can't write it off and say it doesn't do what we want. All of this stuff is relentless in terms of, you've got to look at it as at today and say it doesn't do what we want.
2 months is a long time on the Power Platform.
Yeah.
It moves so much.
And sometimes it's just the little kinks that are the enablers that, like you've just described, change the game. And
it takes it from a possibility to actually, yes, we can do this now.
But if it's a blocker and it doesn't allow, if you can't get to the data you want in Power BI, it doesn't matter how fancy that's presented, does it? You can have all the graphical representations you want. It's pointless without the data. So suddenly that's solved and that kicks in. So keep an open mind, keep looking at it, keep reviewing. Don't set your kind of mind in one way and stick to it for too long, because actually you might just find it snuck past you. Lovely, thank you both. I think it's a good discussion. We'll wait and see what turns up. Hey, look, I'm aware. This is obviously. The BC team are based in Denmark. I think they're all just about to disappear for their summer holidays. This is not the US where they have a week off at best, or a few days off. They're away for a while, so perhaps it's the back end. I would imagine it's the beginning of September before you'll start seeing updates to this and serious moves forward. But they're having planning. They're planning the next release, the next wave now. So wave 1, 2023. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, SaaS has really matured. You've only got to look back 3-4 years now.
It does feel like we're doing these every month and every week. I know we're not. It's every 6 months, isn't it? And the next one will be like Christmas, which is weird, but
it's going past. But you look at when they first launched SaaS, and it was a cut down version of just financials and all the rest. And what was that? 2017. 2018, so it's come a long way very quickly. Where what can't you do on SaaS now? That's a genuine question. What the performance problems are.
It's almost flipped, isn't it? That, SaaS is becoming
the more functional platform. You look at the Teams integration and stuff like that.
It's what can't you do on-prem?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
With that thought, leave you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And talk to you next time.